Hey, New York City real estate buyers, how can you ensure that you're creating the best offer possible so that you can win that dream home in a competitive market like Manhattan? Well, let's talk about it. Some of these tips may surprise you because it actually has nothing to do with how much you're offering, although obviously that's very important. So let's break it down together. I'm Dewey Moss. I'm your New York City real estate resource. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, and let's get started. Okay, New York City, and particularly Manhattan, is one of the most competitive real estate markets in the nation, if not the world. But that does not mean that units still don't sit on the market, and you might find things that are less competitive. But on the whole, it is not unusual, especially in a hot market, for units to have multiple offers on them, for them to go in a day or maybe 2 days. You must be ready to compete in this market. And here are some of the top tips that I have found over my career that certainly help buyers ensure that they're creating the best offer possible and putting the best foot forward to ensure that they win their dream home in Manhattan. Now, you may think that the number one tip is going to be offer the highest price possible, but that is not always the deciding factor. The number one tip that I have for all buyers entering the Manhattan market is be prepared. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there are several levels to being prepared, but you must come to the table with an offer that looks like an airtight, very well prepared offer. It is one of the worst things that you can do to say, I want to make an offer, have your buyer's agents make that offer on your behalf, but then not have all of your ducks in a row to carry out that offer. All of a sudden, you've added time to the offer process, you've added time to the negotiation process, and if another person comes in with all of their ducks in a row, they are going to look much more appealing to the seller. So you must be prepared. So let's talk about what the elements of being prepared actually are. So what do I mean by being prepared? Well, there are several elements to being prepared. The first thing is have your team established and ready to go. Who are your team members? Well, hopefully you're going to be working with a great buyer's agent who has already helped you create a strategy to get to this point of making an offer. But if you don't, get a buyer's broker before you make an offer. They will be able to help guide you through the process of buying in New York City if they are good. Have your attorney hired and ready to go. New York City is an attorney state. An attorney is required on all real estate transactions, but that can also be a really great negotiating tool. If a seller is looking at 2 comparable offers, 3 comparable offers, and your buyer's agent says, hey, by the way, we have such and such as our attorney and we are ready to go, the seller may say, do it. They're ready to go. They'll get the contract to me. We'll sign this really fast. Have your agent in place. Have a mortgage broker that you're already working with or a bank that you're already working with. Make sure that that mortgage broker and that bank can support the kind of mortgage that the building needs. For example, if they do not work with co-ops and 85% of the inventory in New York City are co-ops, you're going to have a problem. And the seller and the seller's agent are going to look at that and say, we really don't know if that bank is reliable, or they're going to give the co-op issues about financing and won't want to work with you and work with your offers. So get a great mortgage broker or bank that understands the New York market. That leads us into another tip, which is be pre-approved. You must submit a pre-approval, or if you're paying cash, you must submit your proof of funds to purchase the unit when you submit an offer. We do not submit an offer and say, well, we'll get the pre-approval if you say yes, or something like that, and try to negotiate around. No. Have your pre-approval ready to go. If your agent is smart, they're going to know how to present that mortgage letter to the seller without necessarily giving away exactly what you're pre-approved for. Work with a great agent on that. But you must be pre-approved to make an offer in New York City. Another tip is know the market. Now, it is virtually impossible, especially for a first-time buyer or someone moving to the city to really understand the New York City real estate market, because it is so different and unique from other real estate markets throughout the nation. Our buying processes are different, our rules are different, every building has a different set of rules. So my recommendation is that you certainly work with a great buyer's agent who's going to be able to guide you through all of this, because it is a very complex buying process, but you must know your market. So what does know your market actually mean? Well, number one tip about that, you cannot think of Manhattan as being the entire market, because it's not. Manhattan is made up of many different neighborhoods, and all of those neighborhoods are going to have different criteria around the buying process and different price points and different competitive natures. In understanding the neighborhood, you're going to need to understand the competitive nature of the neighborhood. For example, the West Village is so very popular, and all of the units down there almost always go at asking or above with multiple offers on them. You cannot walk in to a market like that thinking, I'm going to offer $100,000 less and just see what happens. It's not a matter of anyone trying to gouge you for the price, but it is a matter of the competitive nature of that individual neighborhood. When things are closing at asking, you probably should be prepared to offer asking, and probably be prepared to get into a bidding war, or at least into a competitive bidding process where you may have to offer above asking price. In other neighborhoods, that may not be the case. They may be a little bit less competitive, but you're still going to need to create and submit a competitive offer, one that you're well prepared for, but also an offer that makes sense in terms of how units are closing in that particular neighborhood. You must know the kind of building that you're buying into. Are you buying into a co-op? Are you buying into a condo? Are you buying a townhome? Those are three very different buying processes, and those buying processes definitely affect how you submit your offer, and in fact can actually control the sale of the unit. If a co-op thinks that the value of a unit is being sold too low, they can say no to the sale. So you must be smart about what you offer and understand if you're buying a co-op, a condo, or a townhome, and understand that those are three different buying processes. Another tip about understanding the market is that New York City is a vertical market. That means that the neighborhood is actually the buildings themselves. Buildings are the neighborhood that you look at and that you price against. For example, one bedrooms may be closing at a certain amount in one building, but the very next building over that has a completely different set of amenities, or the lack of amenities, or maybe doesn't have an elevator, the one bedroom are closing at a completely different price point. You cannot apply that price point of that building to the price point of this building. You have to look at what is closing in that building and then look at the larger neighborhood. Now, there are trends within a neighborhood. Perhaps a neighborhood is closing at an average of -6% off the listing prices, and you can use that as a guideline. But ultimately, we are a vertical market, which means what is going on in the building is the number one thing to consider when you're making an offer. Another thing to understand is contracts here in New York City are as-is contracts. That means almost every apartment here in New York City are sold as is. Our buying process is a little bit different. We do not make an offer and then immediately go into contract. We make the offer, we negotiate, we have the accepted offer, and then our attorneys go through what is called a due diligence period, where they look at all sorts of information about the building, including their financials, their board minutes, their offering plans, just to make sure that the building is financially sound and that there's no red flags to keep you from going forward with a contract. Once you sign the contract, the apartment is sold to you as is. So it's very important that before you make an offer, part of being prepared is to make sure that you have really looked at that apartment, that you have taken a look at the building, and that you're ready to purchase that apartment as is. Generally speaking, you're going to have to supply some sort of financial information with your offer. That's part part of making sure you're prepared, and you should work with your agent on this, particularly for co-ops. Co-ops require a certain form that show basically all of your finances and all of your assets so that they can determine whether or not you're going to be a physically sound shareholder in that corporation. So you must work on your financial package and have that ready to go. There are times when buyers try to put off supplying that financial information, but I will tell you that no offer is complete without that financial information. And if you haven't already worked on that with your agent and are ready to submit that upon submitting an offer, then once again, you're adding time to the process, you're adding frustration to the process, because the seller and the seller's agent will come back and ask for your finances before they even consider your offer. And if it's a competitive situation, they may come back and say, thank you for submitting, but we're not even going to consider that, and please don't resubmit, because you didn't complete the offer. You didn't give them all the financial information that they need to determine whether or not you will pass the board criteria and the board's interview in the case of a co-op. And finally, probably the most important tip I can give about making a competitive offer and winning a bid in New York City is to be realistic and be willing to learn about the market. There are a lot of buyers that come into the city and may have been experienced buyers. They have properties out in the rest of the nation. They've been through the process. Usually, very quickly, they learn that our processes are extremely different here and extremely complex in comparison. There are a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of financial information, there are a lot of things that have to be considered up front. And because our market is such a data-driven market, they cannot think that they're going to come in and just offer a really lowball number and have that accepted. There are simply too many variables. If you don't already know it, then you must come to the market realistic and ready to learn. And if you are working with someone who is an expert buyer's agent, then they're going to help you understand the market. They're going to serve more as a consultant to you than an agent who's just going to show you properties, because so many things have to fall in place to create a winning offer and to create an offer that's going to lead to a successful and hopefully as stress-free possible of a transaction. So there it is. There are a few tips to help you create a winning offer in a competitive market like Manhattan. There are so many other steps. My best advice is work with an expert agent who's really going to serve as a consultant to you, not just a person who's going to show you properties. Anyone can do that. But an expert agent is going to really serve as a consultant to walk you through all of these complex procedures and needs to make an offer. They're going to help you through the board application and the board interview. They're going to help you create an offer and a situation where you're going to have as stress-free of a transaction as possible. Again, I'm Dewey Moss. I'm your New York City real estate resource. Please take a moment to look below at all the different ways you can get in touch with me. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. Get in contact with me. I would love to help you find your New York City dream home. And I'll see you next time.